our next guest, we got Gary on to talk to us about K6. So Gary, first of all, something I forgot to do with the first two guests is tell us who you are and what you do at New Relic.
Hi, Ron. So I'm a solution architect at New Relic, and I work in our customer success engineering team in EMEA. So when we were allowed to travel, I was visiting our customers on the sites, and I was, after they've already started using New Relic, how can they get more out of New Relic? How can they get more data in?
Fantastic. So, a lot of the work you do, I know, is with people who are kind of wanting to push the limits of what our product can do or what kind of observability can do, and also how they can kind of integrate even more data in within New Relic. And when I saw this come up on my agenda, I was like, K6, that must be some cool local band version of Kubernetes that I haven't heard about. But it's not that, is it? Tell us about it.
It's not that, no. So K6.io, we can have a look at their site. So so it's an open source load testing.
As I was reading up about it, is that K6 has like the most natural integration between. We're seeing a lot of these startups that have a an open source component, and they have like a SaaS or some other like paid service component, which is sometimes not that it's not that obvious what the connection is. It's like, oh, do you want to do this local caching, or do you want it with stories and Instagram likes? And it's like, I don't really see the connection here. With K6, it's really obvious, right? Because you can run load testing right from your own machine, from your own server, or right, you can use their service to do your load testing way more in depth.
Yeah, exactly. They've got loads of resources out there as well. If you're starting from the ground, they've got some like pre-canned scripts as well. They make it super easy to get started. I love that.
NOAA uses them. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. That's a cool logo to be able to show off on your site. The people with the giant boats with all the radar dishes on them. Sometimes Oregonians think that they're alien ships floating out in the ocean.
Well, but that is that we also had our stream interrupted by a weather event. So, right?
Right? It was a conspiracy all along.
Think about it. It's all connected.
It's all connected. So
bring me the red yarn. I'm going to go tie some stuff together with the red yarn.
K6 is basically Siege on steroids. It's like how you do Siege at an enterprise scale.
Yeah.
Okay. Siege is a Linux tool to achieve this thing. It just does a bunch of requests at whatever you can set up a little file and say, hit my application a lot. It's great for breaking applications and getting data into demos for New Relic and that kind of thing. That's stress.
Yeah, so I've used Siege a little bit, but I know this does some stuff that's quite convenient, right? Where you can do like multiple user agents. See, I'm talking all over you because I got all excited about K6, but I promise, Gary, we'll let you talk soon.
Gary's turn. We're going to stay quiet for 30 seconds for Gary. Go.
Starting now.
Sure. So no worries. So it's super easy to integrate with K6 as well. So this is how the journey started. I contributed to their GitHub with a guide on instrumenting. So a customer came to me and they're like, hey, we use K6 and how do we get our data in there, right? They use New Relic, of course. That's why they talk to me. So they have their production environment. They're testing in their production environment as well. And they want to see side by side, and they want to be a bit smarter in how they're doing things because they've got all their monitoring data, their observability telemetry in one place, and they've got all of their load testing telemetry somewhere else. So they want a joined up view of the two. Because they often go hand in hand. If the system can't handle the load that's coming into it, if you need to scale up the infrastructure, you need to know this, and because it's due to load. So typically when that happens, maybe it's, I don't know, maybe some new tickets go on sale or something like this, right? It's real and you have traffic coming in. But if you're running a load test against your environment and you're not aware that there's a load test happening and you're in production, you're in a bit of trouble there.
So you're running load tests here. I mean, this isn't like a chaos engineering. There's another word for the chaos engineering thing, but I like the chaos engineering. It's not like a tool for chaos engineering, or is it? You're running this against production to test the load capabilities of your systems.
Yeah, this is just sending the request into production. I've seen customers with test environments as well. But what's happening more and more, I think this is the whole shifting left that people talk about, is testing in production, moving quicker and things. So why stand up a whole test infra stack when it's probably, going to fall apart when you point it to production anyway? So testing in production, that's, especially when you're doing it all of the time, you're saving money on not having these test environments in the first place. And yeah, I mean, you're not having to risk that, okay, well, I have these different architecture changes in my test infra and not in my prod infra.
Yeah, that's the big one for me, is the production is always going to be out of sync with whatever you're testing. I mean,
Yeah.
I have yet to find a company that had an exactly replicated production environment, and you're not actually testing the things you think you are. You're paying a lot of money for a bunch of servers you don't need to test in production. I don't think it's fair to say it's a best practice yet, because it's not widely adopted yet, but it's a good practice, well on its way to best practice, I think is fair.
Yeah, I think so. Some of the kind of more older school companies, they're doing this in small scale. Like they'll probably run a production load test once a quarter, maybe, but then they'll regularly be testing in their separate test environments. Yeah. So, but then you've got this other end, which is a very modern kind of delivering software every minute, or maybe that's a bit too much, but every half an hour or something like that. And they're fine. They're running their load tests in production. Many of them, they have GitHub Action, which is doing the deployment, and then they're running a small scale load test, maybe on an A/B test, and then you're having some sort of benchmark. And more often than not, they're going to be using New Relic to judge that as like a quality gate. And then they're going to say, okay, well, we don't need to use an A/B test anymore. Let's turn that on for everybody.
So you have a feature flag in there, and you can flip it back and forth and optimize for the one that gets you the most benefit.
It would also be interesting to see, think about like connecting this to like a canary test to say, hey, as soon as something goes out, we're going to hit it with a bunch of requests and see, like, do we get that like canary indicator, and do we need to roll back?
This is making their logo makes more and more sense to me as I picture someone throwing a mountain at my production infrastructure. Just like, here's your traffic. Oh, you built this thing and you want some users, huh? Catch.
I, of course, look at it and I immediately see the New Relic like line chart of your response.
Yeah, it looks like a graph, which I think is more what they're going for than people throwing mountains in uncommon sight.
All right. Yeah. Love this. Let's take a look. I think we're well, actually, tell me how you got to creating this integration. What was the kind of customer need there?
Oh yeah, sure. So I was in a lovely country. I was in the United Arab Emirates. I was in Dubai. It was actually today last year. So I was there. I was on site with the customer, and this customer, they're a food delivery company. They're big in this part of the world, across Europe and the Middle East, and some parts of America as well, actually. And so I was working with the Middle East division of this company, and so yeah, they wanted to have this data coming into New Relic. So K6 have got integrations with Datadog. They have an output to StatsD, and they of course have their own way of viewing the metrics in their online cloud portal. They said, well, hey, how come there's not a New Relic one? And I think the folks at K6, they built the Datadog on themselves in the StatsD. And so there was nothing for New Relic, but as soon as I seen that they were completely open source, and this was when New Relic was making the shift to open source with all of our agents and our integrations as well, I thought, well, hey, I mean, I'm working with this customer, and we have a need here. Maybe there's something I can do here. So I sat down with them. I thought, okay, K6. Well, we could look at the traces coming into New Relic. We could filter them by the user agent string. They all have K6 in there. I thought, well, we want to have K6's view of this, right? Because K6 is creating the data. That's what we would call the client-side performance. So this is K6's view of how the test is going. And the requests and if they're successful or if they're failing. But then you've got the server-side view where New Relic is sitting on the server, and it's looking at the performance to those requests coming in. So we need a joined-up view. So I looked more at this K6, and I never thought I'd get to this point where, you know, I'm live streaming on Twitch and I've got loads of customers asking me about the same thing as well. So yeah, I worked with the customer, and we just looked at what we can do here. And I went away and I looked at StatsD and New Relic. We have something called New Relic StatsD, which is just our own spin up of StatsD, and it just sends the telemetry to New Relic. That's it. I mean, you can still use it as a normal StatsD client as well. And yeah, there's other versions of StatsD as well. There's like Etsy StatsD, and there's Dog StatsD as well.
I imagine a lot of people know what StatsD does, but just in case they don't,
yeah, good
10
point.
seconds on StatsD.
StatsD is a metric aggregator, and I think that the D stands for daemon, but I'm not entirely sure.
That one word that some people say demon and some people say daemon, but the latter are wrong, in my opinion. Correct opinions often are my opinions. World, listen carefully. So StatsD collects all our metrics and sends them into a thing together.
Yeah. So it performs that aggregation, and it can send it anywhere. You can point it anywhere. And it has what's called a flush period. So that by default is 10 seconds. And that's how often it will aggregate the metrics and stream them real time. It will aggregate them on that flush period. So by default in this config anyway, it's 10 seconds. Okay. So that will get sent into the New Relic telemetry data platform every 10 seconds.
Nice.
Metrics.
Yeah, that's cool. That's very quick. So, but give me a sense though, what are we sending, right? Because if we send a load test to our application, right, we expect to see, you know what, maybe we should just take a look at some data so we can get a sense of like what we're showing. As you're loading that up, I'll say, you know, again, because of course it's my job as the host to ask the foolish questions that no one would ever dare ask because they make you look foolish. But you know, if we're doing a load test, right, we expect to see some data about that on our New Relic dashboard, right, because we see the request coming in. But you know, yeah, let's take a look at kind of what we want to see about our K6 instance.
Yeah, exactly. So so at the right hand side of this dashboard, which is on the K6 docs as well. This is just a list of all of the K6 metrics we have, and you can use to query your data in the top right of New Relic, and you can come to the Data Explorer and click on Metrics, and K6 will append everything with K6 dots. And because I'm not running a load test right now, and it's to the default of 30 minutes. There we go. So yeah, if I just type in K6 here, I can get a view of every single metric that's coming into my system. And K6 is doing a lot of the hard work here. So if we look at my test here, I've got different steps in my test. So one is hitting the homepage of my demo app.
Can you make it bigger a little bit so we can see your code? I want to see the code.
Yeah, sure. So so here we're executing the homepage, which is just an Elastic Beanstalk app. And then I've got three different URLs here. And,
let us know, chat, if you're having trouble reading that. It looks good to me, but that's just my.
I'll hit one more time.
One more time. Hit us again.
I can take off my glasses.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
You've got this function that hits 3 endpoints on Elastic Beanstalk.
Yeah. So this is my demo app, and what it's doing, so first of all, this is the K6 test, by the way, I should say, test.js here. So this will just go to the homepage, it will check that the homepage is up and running. And I've got 3 different endpoints, and this is a Node app that I built, just a Node Express app. And what it does, it generates the number 10 in extremely bad ways. So one way, which is bad maths, and the source code is on GitHub, by the way. It does math.random 11 million times until it can get to the number 10. So this is just, you know, brilliant for load testing and trying to test out the CPU. But part of this is, of course, there is a success criteria. So the number 10 is returned, and K6, it builds a success metric for that. And then that is sent to whatever the output is. So here, if I run the test, K6 run test.js out statsd. So this will run the test, and and I need to type it correctly. So stats D there. So this will run up the test, and what this is doing now, this is actually running the test. And this, so there are some out-of-the-box metrics that just come with K6, which is the number of virtual users that you have, which is, a robot basically, and it's executing these steps. And then it has some things. So depending on the pages that you run, there is going to be another metric for that, and there is going to be a success response code for that. There are tags associated with all of these metrics as well. So there's a bunch of things coming out of this. So here we have status is 200 and body includes 200. If we go back to New Relic, and if we just scroll through here, we have, so contains the header, and we have check has body. So this is the success criteria as viewed by K6. So from K6, it's great. It's been able to load the test.
Yeah.
I see.
But if I have some middleware, right? If I have some middleware and the New Relic agent is behind that middleware, then we could have an issue between, and we need to observe that somehow. And K6 is a great way of doing that. Of course, you could instrument the middleware. But what is the client seeing? I mean, it might be great that we're having a website that's fully functioning within the AWS virtual network. But how's it looking to my users out here, or how's it performing on my New Relic laptop, which the fan is spinning away?
Yeah. So this is the dip here that we're looking at. This is the period of time during which this test started to fail. We were checking to make sure that the response had a body, and it didn't in that period in the valley.
So in these drops, it's probably when this drop here, it was when I stopped the test I was running earlier.
Yeah.
But down here,
you didn't find the body. You made all your tests fail on purpose.
Yeah, pretty much. I had to have some data to show all of us. But here, this is interesting to me, actually, because this one was not planned, this second dip. And it's beginning to look a bit more like the K6 logo on my T-shirt here.
Yeah. I think there might be a problem with your bad maths application. I think it may be implemented poorly.
Yeah, very true. But yeah, so we can get a good bunch of metrics out of here. And yeah, I mean, I can walk you through a bit more of what we have, or I can show you the dashboard perhaps.
Yeah, let's take a look at that overall dashboard. Now, of course, I understand that if we load this up by default, it's going to be blank, right? Because we don't always have data, up to the minute. And that kind of makes sense, right? You have to be a little bit in charge of some time windowing here, right? Because you're hopefully not running load tests all the time, or if you are, please hire an accountant. And so we're going to want to kind of zoom in on a time. Now, I'm curious about something. I know that it's possible to put like deployment markers in a New Relic. It's kind of like a general New Relic question. So Jonah, chime in if you know this one. Have we implemented the ability to like put kind of an arbitrary marker on the timeline? Because I know this comes up when it's like, hey, I ran a load test at this time.
We can use those markers arbitrarily because you can initiate them from our agents, and I imagine through this API as well that you're using, right?
Oh, right. Yes. Yeah. I should go submit this, to this as a feature request for this. Is that some way to automatically, tell our New Relic timeline, like, hey, we were running a K6 load test at this time.
Yeah. Or you could add like a feature that just puts them in there randomly with the maths effect to load test us at the same time. That would be really helpful.
Yeah.
So something I actually have done is implement deployment markers for this load test.
Hey! Nice.
Yeah, so this was part of what the customer was mentioning to me is, hey, if we're having this load test happening in our production environment, we're going to need people that are responding to production incidents to know that there is a load test happening, right? And also, there is the client side of this. So I built a New Relic helper, and this does a few things. So what this does, if I show you the helper here, first of all, when you run the test, and in the helper, you just tell it the app name, which is Node Workshop, and you just give it the API key, which HideStream is hiding for me because I don't show your API key. And so this tells me, the performance operator, that, hey, the health status of this app is not alerting. So this test was probably designed by somebody else. And I'm just a person who's hitting enter now on the keyboard. Obviously, my job is much more fulfilling than that. But I'm having this information in context. using the New Relic API here. So it's just returning the New Relic health status, not alerting. And if it was alerting, that would show up here as well. Then the person who's operating the test can make a call. Do we want to stop this test? Here we do. We can just hit Control C and we can stop this test from executing. And you can do that to automatically not run the test. So you could do, so K6 has this concept of having a check the setup function. And this is where I'm doing the notifier. So the NR is the helper library, which is on the GitHub. I think it should be in the chat. So what this is doing, it's setting the deployment marker for one thing. So people are having the context within the New Relic UI that there is a load test happening, and I'm passing in some metadata about that as well, including who they can go and scream at, because I might be taking down production. But then we also have this print alerting status, and that's giving us this message here. And what you could do is you can just do a check, and you can say within your K6 test, if New Relic helper function returns something other than not alerting, so it might say warning, it might say critical, then kill the test, don't run the test.
So it'll shut it down automatically. I don't have to be sitting there watching it. I can go and eat lunch, and I don't have to worry that my whole team is going to freak out because I've messed something up here.
Well,
exactly. Yeah. Well,
hopefully.
I mean, they may, but this little alert, it's tied to the alert status on the New Relic side. So if I've set up my alert correctly, I say, look, past this line, you shall not go. And it generates an alert. Then it'll turn off the script remotely, and it'll send a notification letting them know to contact gspencer@newrelic.com, which is what this field should always have. If you're writing these demo scripts yourself, make sure you put the correct email address there. It's gspencer@newrelic.com, the blame field.
I really hope not. I'm going to have to speak to IT to change my email address tomorrow.
Use this in all your example code.
Yeah.
Put it in, audience don't put it in as the person to blame for your load tests.
Perfect.
Because here's the thing. They learned it from watching you. So, who's really at fault?
Yeah. I'm going to have lots of unhappy people tomorrow just emailing me, hey, you broke my system. I've never met you. You're not even a New Relic customer. So if we have a look at this deployment marker in New Relic, so you can click into here, or you can just go into the deployments on the left-hand side there. And what this is doing, this is another thing when you're doing load tests. So I don't know how everyone's been involved with the load testing journey, but I used to get quite involved with this. So not just with this customer, but even in my last job, you have an analysis about this load test because you're doing this load test for some reason, right? You're not doing it for the fun of it. You might be doing it for a tick box or checkbox activity. But really, you're trying to make a judgment call, and you're saying, is your software perfect, or is your new release good enough? And then you're saying, okay, well, we're using this as the quality gate. We're saying, are things getting better? Are they getting worse? Are we going to deploy this new feature? Maybe if you're doing it, like we mentioned in the whole A/B test setup earlier as well. So New Relic is collecting these metrics during the load test because we're using that helper script. So we send a deployment marker at the start and at the end of the test. And it doesn't even matter if you give it the same name of a different test because we're generating a new ID. So I can click down here. I can go to the next deployment and look at my earlier load tests. So we can see we've got some stats here, which is like the Aptec score. We can see it drops a little bit here. The error rate, it's fairly low, but I can also see any incidents which are happening. So when they're this pinky red line, you can even click into them from here. So you've got the whole thing in context. You can go and add them to another dashboard. And I think this is the coolest one, is that we have this change report. So you get a before and after view. And if you're using this in the context of load tests, so this deployment, it's not really a deployment, is it? It's a load test.
Yeah. That shows you like what changed. Well, you go ahead.
Exactly. No, yeah, exactly. What's changed? So I can come in here, average time. This load test, 3.7 seconds. The previous one, 9.
Wow.
I can come in here. It's all stored, and New Relic's taking care of it for me. And this, I've seen people who's spend hours trying to build these reports, and how brilliant is it? I can right click, print, save as PDF, job done, send it to my boss. Even better still, give them a link from New Relic One.
I've seen people start at companies, gentleman joined my team at the last company I was with, and in the first week generated one such report to prove that he had just saved the company the entire cost of his employment in his first week on the job. He's like, hey, I discovered that 96% of our alerts were coming from this flapping service that actually nobody uses and didn't need to be tied into our error reporting software. So I turned that off, and our error reporting software bill disappeared by an amount equal to or greater than this gentleman's salary. It's really cool. So the part you were showing in the graph there, I want to make sure I'm understanding the bars. The shorter bars being after I have done the awesome thing, this deployment, I've run 2 load tests to get those 2 bars next to each other. And I could put multiples there as well, presumably.
So this is the one that's generated by New Relic,
Okay.
but there's nothing stopping you from taking this and putting it into a dashboard. Yeah.
Nice.
Love that.
So we can see a few more things about our K6 test. So if I take it to a bit of a longer time frame here. So I have this just in an AWS environment, and the plan is that it scales up as soon as the CPU increases. And because of the math.random I told you about earlier, it's inclined to do. And what I've done here, and this would be like what a performance operator or someone in ops is coming and checking, and they're looking at the memory utilization of these services and how's that looking when more Elastic Beanstalk instances are being added, right? So the query beneath this is just a count of all of the instances that are in my APM app. So oops, I should have zoomed out then. So yeah, I'm just doing a unique count on a host where the app is Node Workshop. So there's nothing complex to this. And then I'm looking at the K6 virtual users, right? So I'm seeing the load coming in from my load test. And then I'm looking at the memory of my whole application service. And then I know that because I've built this, this Node Workshop app, that the more CPU and the more memory that's being used, the more HTTP 500 errors I'm going to have. But also I know that my ELB instances should be scaling up as well. So I'm doing like an infrastructure checkup. I'm making sure that if I do have some massive release tomorrow, that my website and its services, they're going to stay online.
That's awesome. I love load testing. You mentioned earlier that, you know, you're probably not doing it for fun, but that's actually exactly why I do it. I think a lot of people get into observability companies and you kind of fall into this niche in your career because you are very curious about how things fail and when they fail inside of systems. And honestly, breaking things is at least half the fun for me.
Well, and for me, it's the thrill of finding a correlation, right? Like it's one of the things I love about using this marker thing, because I will be the most likely person on a team to be looking back at data from a week and a half ago to be like, oh, look at this when we had some cold starts. Look at this memory overrun over here, and trying to connect the two. So having some clue that like, hey, this one was just a load test, so don't worry about it, is just so nice. But yeah, I love finding those little connections that don't make a ton of sense, but kind of stand out. But yeah, this is great, Gary. We've got some links in the chat to read up a little further about this, or we don't actually right now, but I'm about to put them all there right now. So I'm going to drop some links in the chat if people want to read a little bit more about this. Your Medium article on this is fantastic. So that's really what I want people to check out first. If people want to do like a full webinar on load testing and finding problems a bit faster, we've got like a nice webinar, and there's going to be a little nerd bite coming out as well. It's like the short punging video version of this sometime next week.
Yeah, brilliant. Just one last thing to show you here is the New Relic distributed tracing. So I've just got this view filtered by contains the K6 header. Doesn't have to be K6. If you're using JMeter, BlazeMeter, we don't judge. If you're using whatever the Linux tool was that you mentioned earlier, as long as you've got a request header, New Relic's got you with that. So you just filter it, and this is what I love. So we have this one anomalous span. And this is saying something that's different based on previous instances of this span that New Relic has seen. And we can come here 1,300% slower, jump to span. So like you mentioned, this does actually bring you the fun of it. And it's bad. It's almost a gamification of load testing and performance testing. But yeah, it's brilliant. Like New Relic is bringing you the graphs here, showing you on the histogram and this nice little icon.
Wow. There's a lot. There's a lot of data there, as there is in New Relic, but the correlation piece is the part that is always so interesting. Right. I'm really excited to play with K6. I got to get out there and throw some mountains. Thank you so much for coming on the show with us today.
Yeah.
This was
You're
a
welcome.
super fun one. I have a
Thank you for
little
having me.
clip about it that plays audience, the crowd going wild.
Yeah.
That's my final close here for our first Nerdlog episode. I think it went very well. I enjoyed it very much. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us, everybody, in chat. This was a real fun one. Thanks again to Gary, Shahar, and Daniel for being our first guests and being our guinea pigs. And Dane, if you're watching, thank you again for herding all the cats and getting all the different people at New Relic involved. We'll have video clipped versions of this available in the next few days, so look out for that. Or if you're watching this on a stored video, I don't know. This happened on Thursday. We'll be back every Thursday. I suppose that's the big thing. We'll be back every Thursday. Follow the Relicans on Twitter to get updates as to what we're planning. And we'll have in the video description, if you're watching this on video, there should be a link to sign up for updates when our next one is going live.
You can always come and check the schedule right on the Twitch page there, or just follow us and you'll get a notification.
Yeah,
go live. So thank you for
to
watching.
tell you what we're actually going to be demoing on each one, so you won't come in cold.
Yeah, appreciate you all being here. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks again, folks. Jonah, you're the one closing the stream, so I'm just going to look cool while I wait for the stream to end.
I'm going to actually go and end the stream right now.
I can only look cool for so long, Jonah.
How am I going to end the stream? I'm not actually producing the stream. We're going to figure it out. Oh, Mia's producing the stream. Mystery Mia is going to end us all. Bring it down.